Welcome to the Real Music Company. AVM, or Audio Video Manufaktur, I'll do that in my best German accent. They've been around since 1986 and they're based in Malsch, which is in the state of Baden-Württemberg in Germany. And they had their 30th anniversary in 2016. They did 3,000 units of a preamp with monoblocks and an integrated amplifier for their 30th birthday, and they sold out really, really quickly. So this is a second edition, basically. Again, they've done a preamp with monoblocks. They've also done a very good CD player, and this is the integrated amplifier. So everything you need on board, with some tasty updates over the original 2016 units to give you a new super integrated style of amplifier. So these sorts of amplifiers are very much taking over from where maybe about 10 years ago people used to buy a separate preamp and power amp. Most of the manufacturers that we represent now have such good one-box units that those sales have died off, which is good news for those of you out there who just want a really nice, simple, do-all one-box package but don't want to compromise on the sound quality. So here's the front panel of the A30.3 integrated. And from the left you can see up here there's your infrared eye, so you point your remote control at that. Beautiful anodized aluminium front panel. Power, inputs, lovely switching sound there. Bass and treble, we'll come back to that in a minute. There's your display and volume. Headphone socket at the end there. Balance control and level. So the level there is designed to allow you to tailor make the amount of gain or signal coming into each of your inputs. Most people probably best leave that alone, but if you like to tinker, just push and hold that, and I'll do it one-handed, but you get the idea. Use one hand or both hands, and you can change the level inputs. Now, bass and treble, the reason I've left that till last is most amplifiers don't have bass and treble. Most of the time, the implementation of bass and treble controls is pretty poor. That's not the case with an AVM. AVM's bass and treble controls are excellent. They don't make the amplifier sound worse, and you'd use them. I would suggest you use them if your speakers maybe just have a little bit too much oomph in the bottom, maybe a little bit too bright in the top. It's a very simple way to maybe give yourself some sort of basic room correction without having to go down the path of any kind of acoustic treatment, although those work brilliantly, or trying to get into computerized room correction, which I think you'll see in the next generation of amplifiers. After this one, manufacturers will start implementing that into these great big super integrateds. Most of what goes on in an amplifier like this is hidden under the hood, and the AVM 30.3 is absolutely no exception. AVM makes really, really powerful amplifiers, and this one rates in at well over 140 watts into 8 ohms, which doesn't sound a lot, but in the real world, it's an enormously powerful amplifier. It has 2 transformers, which would be, if this was a car, it's like saying it's got 2 engines almost. It's a completely mono circuit, both sides, so 2 monos meaning completely stereo, which means the signal is completely identical down both sides. It's not using 1 transformer but 2. One of the neatest features of this amplifier isn't easily apparent until you read the instructions. This amplifier has a home theater bypass, which means you can slide it into a home theater system and it will slave to your home theater amplifier and do a vastly better job of running your front loudspeakers, far, far better than any home theater amplifier could ever do. It's pretty simple. You just read the instructions. I won't show you here. It's pretty boring to watch, but if you do need home theater bypass, this amplifier's got it. Of course, describing sound quality is nearly impossible because the terms mean so many different things to different people, but the hallmarks of AVM is that they're absolutely bags of power, huge dynamics, loads of detail. They image like crazy, and they're really, really, really easy amplifiers to listen to. They're not fatiguing, but they're not boring either. They're not pipe and slippers. They've just ride that fine line between being interesting to listen to, but not fatiguing, and they do that extremely well. That's one of the big hallmarks of AVM, and that's why it's made them famous. Because of the amount of circuitry in the 30 series amplifier, the DAC and the two transformers, they simply couldn't fit a Phono Stage into the amplifier and still have it sound good. It's probably unlikely that anyone with the kind of money to spend on this amplifier would put a basic turntable with it, so the prospective buyer is probably not going to have a problem with buying one of these, which is the little P30 Phono Stage, which does moving magnet and moving coil. It's an extra, but this is an absolutely stunning little Phono Stage. Perfectly complements the 30 series. It's even got the badge, and like I say, it does both moving coil and moving magnet. So if you are a vinyl lover, pick yourself up one of those at the time. Turning to the back panel of the amplifier, you can see that it has a generous number of inputs and outputs, as well as access to the digital analog converter. So from the left here, you can see the USB input for any kind of future firmware updates, a Bluetooth antenna, your 3 analog inputs, which are RCA. Technically they're called single-ended, and these are balanced inputs here. So if you're ever wondering or curious about what the difference between single-ended and balanced inputs are, well, there's what the plugs look like. You need a truly balanced amplifier, so the circuit has to be entirely symmetrical. Not all amplifier circuits are, most aren't in fact. This one is, so it's got 2 transformers and it's what's known as a twin mono amplifier. So that means that the balanced line inputs of this amplifier aren't just for show. They actually will work and give you the kind of sound quality that only a balanced line input can give. 24-bit 96 kilohertz available in the DAC here. You can plug in your computer, which is probably the most modern way of doing it. So you could get yourself a NUC, which is a little baby computer, which you could tuck away out of sight, and that can do your streaming for you if you wish, or you could just plug a laptop in should you choose. Here's your 2 Sony Philips digital interfaces, the classic all-time way of plugging in things, coax with the single RCA 75 ohm connector and the Toslink optical connector. Fixed and variable analog outputs. So fixed means it will just go straight out to a power amp, and variable meaning it'll go out to a power amp but give you volume control to very big binding posts. So just the 1 pair of loudspeakers, and of course power on and off. And you can see that everything's made in Malsch. Get my fingers out of the way of the lighting. Malsch in Germany, a beautiful part of the country. So if you're looking for an amplifier that pretty much does everything in one box, but still sounds fantastic and will drive pretty much any loudspeaker you can think of within reason, you should really come down and have a listen to the AVM 30.3 integrated at the Real Music Company.